That was awkward.
All right, we got Dan here, nutrition coach Dan Magalhaes. How do you actually say it?
Magalhaes.
No, say it the real way.
Magalhaes.
Okay, cool. Dan has some opinions about nutrition, and this time of year, many folks have some questions surrounding what they should do to prepare for the Open. One of the most common questions is, should I attempt to lose a bunch of body fat and drop my weight down in order to be better at burpees and gymnastics so that I can finally crack the top 100 in the Open?
No, absolutely not. I think a lot of people have this idea that, like you said, because the Open tends to be very gymnastics heavy, we tend to only have one workout that's got a heavy barbell. And really there's probably some benefit to having a lower body fat percentage. So people get the idea that they should look at cutting or going into a caloric deficit to try and achieve that. But I think what a lot of people fail to recognize is that this time of year in the Open season, even though their training has decreased in volume a little bit, we're seeing massive increases in intensity. And the intensity is actually turning out to be the most physically taxing both on the body and the central nervous system. So when we look at nutrition in terms of athletic performance around Open season, we're thinking about nutrition in terms of recovery from those intense efforts. And what's going to happen if you're trying to decrease the amount of food you're eating, going into a caloric deficit, that's going to come with it some performance decrements and decreased recovery in general. And all of that is going to significantly outweigh any advantage that you would see from an increase or a decrease in body fat percentage.
But I heard on a podcast that if I'm a female and I'm attempting to compete in the sport of fitness and my body fat isn't at 12 or 13%, that I'm screwing up.
Actually, if you look at statistics of high-level athletes in the sport of CrossFit, you'll see that especially for women, having slightly higher body fat than what would be considered, cosmetically advantageous is certainly an advantage to performance. Especially for women in particular. When we start to get below a certain body fat percentage, we're going to see huge increases in cortisol, which is a stress hormone, which is going to significantly affect their ability to recover from intense exercise. That's kind of an overgeneralization, and it's a complex idea, but I think we need to realize that at this point in the sport, if performance is your priority, that is completely distinct and mutually exclusive from body composition as a goal, if that makes sense.
Sure, but I'm supposed to be at 12% body fat to do well. So I need to get there.
Okay.
So I need to get to 12% body fat before I can even do well. So I need to focus on that right now.
Well, I think what we're missing out here is that there certainly is a time and a place for performance athletes to look at changing body composition, but around the Open is not the time to do that. In the off season, when we're looking at strength and skill acquisition periods of training, that's the best time to actually try and either increase muscle mass or decrease body fat by playing with either a caloric surplus or caloric deficit. When we get to the Open, we need to be as close to our maintenance weight, the amount of calories that we need to actually sustain and recover from these intense efforts as possible.
I heard on another podcast that Austin Malleolo will forget to eat all day. So he ends up staying pretty lean because he just works out all day and forgets to eat. So I think I'm going to try that.
Well, I'll tell you what. If it's true that Austin Malleolo forgets to eat, which I highly doubt, I'm willing to bet that when he does get home at the end of the day, he's eating thousands and thousands of calories, meeting, if not exceeding, the type of energy that an athlete of that level would be required to consume to, perform at the level that he does.
Well, that all sounds very smart and sciencey, but I'm probably going to tell you that I'm not going to try to do a cut during the open or leading into it. I'm going to secretly do it anyway. What will happen?
Well, I think you can expect that you might not notice any significant decrease in performance right away, but especially once the open actually starts, and you're probably attacking these open workouts at least twice. I hope for your sake, no more than that, but at least twice. These are going to be absolute 100%, leave yourself laying on the floor for half an hour afterward type efforts. You're going to completely empty the tank. And if you're on a cut, that means you're not really refilling that tank. So each week, each 100% effort that happens, you're just going to slowly empty the tank. And if you don't, hurt yourself or have some kind of like massive crash or performance decrement, you're definitely going to notice decreased performance throughout the open. So maybe your first few workouts will be okay. You'll be exactly where you expect to be. But what will happen is what we see with a lot of people every year. By the time week 4 or 5 comes around, suddenly they're not quite living up to the same level of performance that they expected from themselves and their coaches expected from them. And I mean, this happens all the time. It's happened to me. I've seen it happen to a lot of athletes that I've worked out with. It's a common thing.
Well, Coach Dan, you make a lot of sense.
Thanks, Coach Todd.